Thank you everyone so much for joining. My name's Trisha. If we haven't met before, I am coming to you live from sunny Raleigh, North Carolina, which is great. And I am pretty pumped to talk to you about technology today. So I'll share my screen. I do want these presentations to be interactive. So if you have questions, unmute, ask a question, interrupt me. It's totally fine. I put these sessions together really for you so that you would have, so that you could benefit from some of the random information that I have. And so if you're not getting value from it, then, point me in a direction and I'll hopefully get you some value. I started with this idea a few weeks ago as some of us were getting PPP dollars and just thinking about how we spent that. And, for a lot of motor coach companies, you have enough business that you have some payroll to be using, but for some bus companies, they're not quite there yet. And so I was thinking of ways that you can use PPP and eventually CERTS dollars to improve your business in ways that maybe you weren't thinking about. And so today we're going to talk about technology, and I've had a couple other webinars as well. So if you've been living under a rock and don't know what PPP or CERTS money is, the government calls them forgivable loans. I like to call them free money. PPP is available now. You need to apply by the end of March, and it's good for 2.5 times payroll. The second round of PPP does require a 25% reduction in revenue, which I think across this industry, all of these. And if you didn't get PPP funds, you are still eligible. So if you haven't taken advantage of that program, it is a good program that you're eligible for. First is a program that I worked really hard for with the Gang of 11 and a number of other people in the industry. $2 billion shared between motor coach, passenger vessel, and school bus. And it sounds like I'm getting some feedback. So I'm not sure who that is, but I'm going to mute someone. So if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself. The thing about CERTS is that details are TBD, like so many questions about this. I'm expecting to see applications in 6 to 8 weeks. I've been saying that for a few weeks now, and we still don't have any new information. My guess is that I would hope that we see funding in May of 2021, but there are lots of question marks around that. So, the applications are not open yet. We don't have any information about how much money each company might be eligible for. We're still waiting for direction from Treasury on that. I'm not a tax accountant, and I don't pretend to be one on TV. My go-to for PPP and CERTS questions and really all tax-related questions is Tracy Fickett. She specializes in the bus industry, and frankly, she nerds out about tax law the way that I nerd out about technology. So best to ask her, and you can reach her at busbooks.co. Both PPP and CERTS require that you spend 60% of that money on payroll to get forgiveness. The PPP dollars do turn into a long-term loan, which may work for some of your businesses. But if you are trying to get forgiveness, you do have to spend at least 60% on payroll. And the technology piece is interesting because under PPP, if you are spending money on operational technology, it's also part of your forgiveness calculation. So it can be, anything from a QuickBooks subscription to, some of the services that we provide. I think Distinctive falls under this category. And so for some of you, that may be, a chunk of change that's pretty nice. My concept in sharing all of this is that, we can't return to normal. I don't think normal will exist again for a few years. And frankly, I think that we don't want to return to normal. We have the opportunity right now to return to better. And I think we all need to, look at this catastrophe as an opportunity to make some changes to our business to return to better. Why do I feel like I can host this webinar? My business partner, Ryan, and I, along with our team, have more than 40 years of combined operating experience. We were operators before we were technology nerds out in Seattle. And between Ryan's role as a VP of operations, managing up to 150 people, and my role, in the office, managing the business side of things from finance and strategy and operations and marketing, we've touched all the pieces of the pie. And we have this, I told my mom, I've said this before, I told my mom last week that I am weirdly famous. And I feel like that's probably a lot to do with the fact that, I like to get in the weeds and get dirty and get things done. And we have this, sort of combined with that random technology and other random knowledge, it feels like we have the opportunity to help. And so we put together this series of webinars so that if other people could benefit from our experience, they can. We're part of a number of great organizations across the US, including IMG and ABA, UMA, and I know there's a couple GMJMA people on here, as well as Tennessee and Northwest Motorcoach. So if you are part of those organizations, you'll probably see us at events when they return in person. But as soon as budgets return, we are looking forward to joining a number of other great associations as well. The work that the state associations do is really amazing. So this is a man that is carrying a wheelbarrow of bricks, and it makes me so sad every time I see it. Also, it makes me laugh. This is like the 6th or 7th time I've done this presentation with this slide in here, and it just pains me to watch. And I think what's really hard to swallow is that in all of our businesses, somewhere we are carrying a wheelbarrow of bricks. And there are things that we just make more complicated than we need to. And so for us to be able to get best return on investment, we need to set the wheelbarrow down and roll it like it was designed to do. So spending smarter and working smarter. The 5 categories of business that I'm talking about over this series are strategic finance, smart marketing, organization, cost-effective technology today, and then Friday we'll have a fun, engaging session on Friday around leadership. So the slide deck will be significantly shorter on Friday, and everyone will be off mute. Heads up for those of you who either have registered and want a warning or have not registered and are very excited. Technology. I tried to find a fancy quote, and then I realized, I'll just quote myself. That won't be, funny at all. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think a lot of people think about technology in terms of Salesforce and Oracle and all of these big, fancy, complicated programs. And the truth is that, over the last 10 years, there have been a whole bunch of small business tools that are created that are not complicated. Now, sometimes the learning curve on them is a little bit difficult, but once you, dig in and really commit to, experiencing them and seeing how they look and how they feel and what they do, they make a lot of sense. And, Silicon Valley and other technology hubs around the country and even around the world have spent literally millions and billions of dollars developing these technologies for them to be used by you. So, we at the L&W team, we don't really do any custom technology. We just configure technology. So we find different ways for platforms to work together to solve problems. And generally it works. It feels like magic when it works, right? So I want to give you a quick example of something that we can do. This is a really simple example. I'm going to pull down my presentation and I'm going to show you on I could pull up my phone, but I'm just going to do this one on the computer. So this is a trip count. So for people who do, say, line runs, or even for people who, are going to the casino and have, a number of people on board, you want to count how many passengers are on board. And the driver has a clipboard and he's got a pen. Hopefully he has a pen and it hasn't fallen in the, crack of his seat or something like that. But there's always that clipboard where you're counting people coming on board. And so this is a digital form that we've made. And so we have the trip date, and if you click on it, you can select what day it is. It defaults to today, which is kind of nice. Some of the things that you can do with digital forms is not just that it's, electronic, and there's all of the very obvious things that come along with being electronic and those benefits, but also the forms are quote, smart. They know that today is the 24th of February, and so they start with that. So you don't have to go through the process of, looking at your watch and figuring out what day it is, like I do every time I try to write down what day it is. I'm going to select my driver name. My name is Trisha, and I am going on the airport run. So this could be, if you have different runs that you're going on. And then my scheduled arrival. So I'm going to arrive here at 2:10, and I have 17 people on board. Now, in a mobile app, if I'm clicking here, it'll actually capture my GPS location. I don't like the internet to track where I am, so I have that blocked. But here you can see that the departure time, I'm going to say that I am leaving this location at 1:14 p.m. And so I'm going to click submit. And what happens is that gets sent to the cloud. And it gets sent to the cloud, and in the cloud, they have all these little robots, and they do fancy things, and they might make you a birthday cake. You ask really nicely. No, they turn that into a PDF, but then the data actually gets, in our case, sent to what we call our trip count dashboard. So I'm going to go to the airport, and I can see that today is Wednesday, the 24th, and here it's 2:10, and I have 17 people on. That happens very, very quickly, almost in real time. And so you can see how what this does for your managers is it allows them to monitor important information versus cycling through a stack of papers that you get at the end of the day to figure out what's happening. So this sort of technology can be really useful for if you have multiple locations over a region. Michelle, you said you were with All Aboard America and listed a couple different bus companies in different places. Wouldn't it be great to, instead of, calling down to New Orleans to figure out how many people they, had on buses yesterday, if you could log in somewhere and see what that data was in real time. So this is a very simple example of something that we built. The client wanted it to be a weekly, to look at it by week, but here we can adjust the date. And so if I wanted my week to start on Monday, then I could type in get Nancy, 2022. Hopefully that's a better year than this year or last year. But if I type in that date, then this will shift. And so you can see that all that data moves through. And if I looked at next week or last week, it would access all of that information in the database. And we can do cool, obviously we have some conditional formatting here so that it's fancy colors. But really, it's really, really cool what we can do with dashboards when you have access to the data. The other thing that happens is that information gets put into a PDF and stored to the cloud. So for those of you who are looking at doing, driver inspections or paperwork that you might need to have audited, imagine instead of it coming into your inbox with maybe a coffee spill on it. I used to hate getting paperwork from my mechanics because it smelled like grease all the time, and then it was in my office. All of that is automatically stored to the cloud so that you can simply access it there. And I guess, let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I'm going to see what's in here. We have so many forms in here. I forget where it's stored. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind sending me that, and then I can share that with the group, that would be great. I'll get back to the demo so that I can keep talking about nerdy technology. You guys know that I love it so, so much. So, when you think about how technology works, a lot of people think of technology as an expense, but the truth is that it's not an expense. Technology is your best, most valued, most amazing, best, did I say that twice, employee that you've ever had in your entire life. Think about that for a second and understand that Technology can do all of these things that currently a lot of our employees are doing. Oh, forgot about that piece, but it is true. Technology is your best, most valued, most amazing employee you've ever had in your entire life. It never complains. It's always there on time. Doesn't care how much work you give it. And it can solve a lot of problems for us. So these are my 3 favorite humans. Tiffany Taylor, who is on the call today, has promised me that she will get a headshot and then she can show up here. But for now, she's in the witness protection program. This is my team at the L&W team. And they're my 3 favorite humans. I love working with them. And there is not $1 that I wouldn't spend to make them stop doing something so that they could do something else. And the reason for that is that we pay our employees a huge sum of money each year and each hour and each day. And we've gotten used to what those numbers are. But when I am paying, well, Ryan's part of our ownership, but when Ryan and I are bringing home salaries, I don't want Ryan to be spending time filing. I don't want him to spend time entering data. What I want Ryan to be doing is the same thing I want Sadie to be doing and Tiffany to be doing. I want them to be thinking about the business. I want them to be having personal conversations. I want them to be empathetic with the rest of our team. And I want them to have the time and the bandwidth to be able to have a quick catch up about, what are you doing this weekend? Or how was your day last night? Or like, hey, I remember it was your kid's birthday. Those pieces of conversation that your managers are having with your employees, when they have time to be able to meaningfully engage with your employees, you'll see your retention skyrocket. And so those are the trade-offs that you're making when you're asking your employees to file and when you're asking your employees to do data entry. What you're doing is you're saying that strategic work, that thinking work, that human-only work is not as important to me as the cost of technology. And when you think about the hourly cost of technology versus the hourly cost of your employees, I promise you technology is cheaper. So how much does technology really cost? And the real answer is that technology doesn't cost you anything. What you need to look at is what is the value of it. And so when 10 hourly employees are spending 15 minutes a shift, $30 an hour, costs you almost $20,000 a year. Now, many of you have more than 10 employees. You may or may not be paying your employees somewhat close to $30 an hour. But remember, the cost of employees is not just their hourly rate. If you're paying a driver $25 an hour or a mechanic $25 an hour, you're paying for benefits, you're paying for maybe uniforms in the office, they might have a computer. So it's not hard to think about how the real cost of an employee, when you think about taxes, benefits, and all the ancillary things that come along with them, doesn't get real close to $30 an hour for many of our employees. And if you have 20 employees and you could save them an hour, this number gets astronomically large. On our manager side, I used to joke that by implementing technology, I could go on vacation from Thanksgiving through New Year's and no one would miss me. Now, my team knows that they would definitely miss me because I am super fun to work with. But when you think about that 5 or 6 week period, that's the time that you're spending doing things that you could have robots do for you. If you're spending 3.5 hours per week on paperwork, that costs you a month of productivity. 10% of your time is that period between Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's tax season right now, right? And maybe this will be the only year that we're really happy about it being tax time since our businesses haven't been doing very well. But there was some stat where you work through March or you work through April and all of that money you're making all goes to taxes. And then for the rest of the year, that's money that you're actually making. And of course, your paycheck isn't segmented into, pre-tax, in March, you are still getting paychecks, obviously. But, when you think about it that way, it's interesting to think about that time period between Thanksgiving and New Year's, that is a lot of time. And, if you could be taking additional vacation or have extra bandwidth, what is it that is really important for you to be doing? And is it filing for 6 weeks? I can't imagine that it is for most of your employees. especially as we think about, minimum wage potentially increasing. I know in Seattle, minimum wage right now is almost $17 an hour. Is that the cost of filing these days, or is it a lot less? And I went through this exercise to show you a way to think about technology as we grow back. And so, a year ago when we were having these, I guess more than a year ago now, when we were having conversations, there was always a portion of someone's job that was going to be automated. And that was really hard to think about when you think about, well, Sue's whole job is doing this. And I think for most people in the motor coach industry, there's a long list of things that we're not getting to, or a long list of things that are more important than what she's actually doing right then. We had a safety director, a client that came to us, and 80% of their safety director's job was doing this paperwork. And, I was kind of worried when I was pitching the client, like, well, if we automate 80% of his job, like, will he still have a job? And there was a whole host of things that they wanted him to be doing instead. And so it worked out really, really well. And I think for most of us in this industry, that's true, or that was true back in 2019. It's even more true now because most of us are working on skeleton crews. And as our business builds up and as the sunshine returns and people get vaccines and get out to travel, our businesses will grow back. And we're going to need to have some, decision points about when we bring on, a part-time employee or a full-time employee or whatever that looks like. So let's say, it looks like March is going to be a great year, and we're going to bring back some employees that are working part-time. So we're going to hire 2 people at $2,500 a month each. They work for us for a couple months. Come in June, we need to pay them some benefits. So, $500 a month in healthcare gets tacked on. In August, we're cranking again and we need to bring on another person. And so, we bring that person on, and again, 3 months later, they need benefits. It's December. So, we give them a little holiday bonus and we have a holiday party because, it's December of 2021. We made it almost 2 years through the pandemic. Unfortunately, January maybe isn't as great, so we have to let one of the employees go. But then in March, it's been a year, so they're going to be expecting a raise, and so we bump up their pay. I mean, not atypical for, as you think about growing back. I think probably many of these, or some of these roles would have moved from part-time into full-time. The same sort of concept applies. Over the year, you've spent $91,500 in payroll. Woof. Now, if you think about the same type of scenario with technology, you can think about automation. So you can buy a lot of technology for $500. And what if you invest in technology side by side with as you're growing back with employees? So instead of hiring 2 people, you hire 1 person. And the technology cost is exactly the same amount. Now, you may, as you're growing back, this employee of course gets benefits, and then they get the Christmas bonus, and then they get their raise in March. But your technology costs are fairly standard. Now, the difference there is that over the course of the same time period, you only spent $49,000. Well, that's a savings of $44,000. And I think when we look at the problem that way, we all go, "Oh yes, Trisha, I definitely want to do that." But unfortunately, in a lot of our businesses, we look at the cost of technology, $10,500, and we think, gosh, that is a lot of money. I don't know that it makes sense for us to spend that amount of money. But if you look at the other side of the coin, you understand how that makes absolutely no sense to not spend $10,500. I should spend $10,500 every single day if it's going to save me $44,000. That's an amazing return on investment. And so this is the way that we need to think about technology. And it was really, it was interesting. I'll sort of sidetrack here. When last March and last April, when we realized that the world had changed and that it was not going to be a 2 to 3 week pandemic, we started slashing expenses. And one of the expenses that I slashed was this platform called Calendly. And if you've seen my email signature, you see at the bottom, it says schedule a call with me to learn more about how digital forms can automate your business. And you click there and it syncs with my calendar and you can set up an appointment with me. Larry on the call and I just had a nice chat this week from that link. And the link allows you to schedule time on my calendar. It sends you a reminder 24 hours in advance, and it sends you another email an hour in advance. And I've set up all those things on the platform. Platform cost me $10 a month. Well, we were slashing all of our expenses. And so I was like, slash, 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 no more Calendly. No, I'll go into a couple of the other tools that I use, but we cut everything. And then I had a potential client call and they didn't show up. And so I was, I'd done all this presentation work to like put my deck together and I was all prepared and I was sitting there and it was a busy day, but I sat there for 20 minutes waiting for them and they never showed up. And I had emailed and I had called and they were like, I'm so sorry. I forgot. Happens all the time. We're all very busy. We have all kinds of things. Not showing up for a client meeting is not, or for a vendor meeting, I guess, is something that I'm sure has happened to all of us who are in sales. Well, fast forward to at that moment, I realized that the $10 a month that I was spending on technology was not at all worth the value of me knowing that I didn't have to do all that wasteful prep work. So I re-implemented Calendly and I had a call on Monday with someone. They got the reminder the day before and they were like, shoot, this isn't going to work for me. They automatically rescheduled it. I got a notification that my meeting had been moved and I didn't even have to think once about it. $10 a month, super useful. And so when we think about all of those tech tools, when we look at how much we're spending on automation tools each month, that number is pretty high. But when you think about each individual moment of, is this worth $10 a month? Absolutely not. I want to make sure that I always have Calendly available. So that's just a quick example of how you can think about technology and how, over time, these technology costs will add up. But overall, you're saving a lot of time and finding a lot of value. And that's why I believe that for every $1 million of revenue, you should be spending at least $25,000 on technology. And I don't think this is an increase in expenses. I think you're currently spending $100,000 to do the exact same thing. And that's really hard to swallow when you think about your payroll dollars and what that looks like. But I think there are very few companies in the motorcoach industry that are spending $25K on technology. So some tips for moving forward with technology. First, get the max value from your current technology partners. I put up a couple here on the screen. These are, I don't know anyone at Samsara, but I have friends at the other platforms, and I know that they're working really hard through this pandemic to make sure that everyone is getting the max value out of their platforms. Sockon and Distinctive specifically are platforms that have a lot of configuration that you can use, and there are very few companies that are using them to their max ability. So reach out to Eric, reach out to Mike if you're using either of these platforms, ask them for help. I know Samsara has customer service out in San Francisco, and Samsara does a really good job of rolling out new development on a regular basis. They have raised almost $1 billion, so I would assume that they have many developers on staff to be able to do that. But reach out to them and ask the people who are familiar with the software, what else can I be doing? They know the platform better than anyone else. So make sure you're using all the features and then ask them for more features. They're in the development business. They build platforms for you. Ask for what you want. And if they're not giving it to you, find another platform that maybe meets your needs better, especially as your business is evolving. Get rid of your paper. So the biggest thing that I would love to see in this industry is for us to move completely off of paper to digital forms. When we went digital in our operation, we had 10 vehicles at the time, and we ended up saving about $150,000 a year in payroll and paper and banker's boxes and pens and clipboards and all the things. Moving to digital forms saves you money. It's easier than dealing with paper. You get access to real-time data. frankly, I should put no more filing at the top of this, because as Tiffany and Ryan both know, the stack of filing that I was supposed to do on my desk was very, very tall all the time, this tall all the time. No more chasing drivers for next day driver signatures, no more file cabinets, no more messy desks. I mean, this list is like a happiness list. Plus, it saves you money. And if you need one more, it's also good for the environment. So buses are the greenest form of group transportation, and we like to be green and in the environment. So, the example that I showed you of, your clipboards and your drivers out on the road, everyone has that equivalent of counting passengers. Maybe it's recording expenses or fuel receipts or whatever it is. I know that there is paper in your business, and I know that you can move forward without it. You can use all the tools that we use to build digital forms for clients, or, we're happy to build those for you. We're also happy to just talk to you about how it can get done, because it is something that is an incredible value to your business. When Ryan took our operation digital, it did take him about 18 months. Granted, we have significantly more business than I think most bus companies have right now. And there was a learning curve. But once he figured it out, then it was really easy. And then it was very easy to automate everything. And now we, build forms and automate things in a matter of days or hours. So these are some cool tools that I use, that we use. I think most people are probably familiar with Google Sheets. Google Sheets is a great platform that allows you to make, Excel style dashboards. It also connects with a lot of things. And so it's great that multiple people can log into the same Google Sheet and see the information in real time. I know that sometimes when our team is working on our internal sheets and one person wants to do this and another person wants to do this, the real time look at it is often kind of hilarious. I know Tiffany and I have a spreadsheet that we are often both on. And it's like, oops, didn't know you were here. So JotForm is the platform that we're currently using for our digital forms. What we like about this is that it has unlimited users and the pricing is great. We use Slack for all of our internal communication. And if you're not on Microsoft Teams or Slack, you should get your company on them. I think one of the things that I like most is that I can ping my team, and if they are not at their computer, they can get a notification on their phone, which is great when you're at home and like, oh, I'm upstairs doing laundry. Like, I don't care that you're doing laundry. That's great. But I like that you can be like, oh, I'll just run back to the computer and answer Trisha's question and then go up and do laundry again. So, it's a great resource to be able to, communicate internally with your employees without picking up the phone or jumping on a Zoom call or sending a text message. It's just a messaging platform. Slack is very famous for replacing email significantly, but it is great. QuickBooks will actually integrate with Zapier and do a number of things. So we create invoices through QuickBooks and we send them over to a Google Sheet and we do some manipulations around them with maybe commissions for employees, or if you're paying people based on sales that they bring in, some of that can be automated. When tools play nicely with each other, there's all kinds of neat things that you can do. AirSquirrel is one of my favorite platforms. It's the ability for me to put my phone up on, oops, I didn't think that was going all the way away, but it looks like it has. It's the ability for me to put my phone onto the screen, and it's this, I think it was $10, maybe $15 for a lifetime license. And so so now my phone is on my screen. And so you guys can see that I have a number of missed phone calls, but here I have, all my apps and I can, show this. This is particularly useful if you're doing any trainings or you need to show employees who are maybe at a different location, something that's on your phone. And for $15 for a lifetime license, like, worth it. Zapier is one of my favorite platforms because it is like a easy to use API. And for those of you who are not familiar with exactly what an API is, what I like to think of it is as a connector. So you think about when you were a kid and you were playing the telephone game, and I had a cup to one ear with a long string, and at the other end was another cup with one of my friends on the line. Zapier is the string that connects those two cups. And so when you're putting information in on one side, Zapier pulls it out and connects it and sends it to another platform. So we use, like in the QuickBooks example, I use Zapier for QuickBooks data to be sent to Google Sheets. And so Zapier is this middle player that connects all those dots. And there's thousands of platforms that integrate to Zapier, which makes it really a great tool to use. In the industry, Samsara integrates with Zapier, and I just cannot wait to find a client who wants me to do some cool stuff with that. So, as you're looking to think about maybe combining, the AI driver grade report that they have with maybe your HR data. So you want to say like, does this person call out? Do they show up on time? Have they gone above and beyond? You want to put together your driving statistics with that HR data. You could connect it through Zapier and take two sets of databases, put them together to really create an interesting dashboard for maybe your scheduler. When there's not enough work to go around, you want to take people who are safe drivers and show up to work on time. So that might be an interesting thing for you to be able to do. We took a client from zero to more than $3 million last year on Shopify. Her business had been decimated by the pandemic, and she pivoted very quickly, and we managed all of her technology through the Shopify platform. It was they ended up doing box delivery out of Seattle, and they got acquired at the end of the year, which was a bit bittersweet for us because we really enjoyed working with them. Really engaging company. But as you're thinking about ways to diversify, do you have T-shirts or license plate holders or extra inventory? I know some of you have mascots, and do you have a little 6-inch mascot? If you're thinking about selling those online, it can be a great way to diversify, and Shopify is a really easy platform to get up and get started. I told my silly story about Calendly. It's one of my favorites. And we actually just brought a client on to T-Sheets by QuickBooks. So it's an electronic timekeeping platform so people can clock in and clock out, but you can also track mileage through there. So if you're not getting the right information from your ELD, or you want to look at it a little bit differently, that's a great platform. There's another platform that I didn't put on here called Homebase, which is a free timekeeping tool that does breaks and lunches really nicely as well. And then Loom is another one of my favorites for video recording. And I think this is a great way, while we're not in the office with each other, to be able to send explanations of what we're doing. So say I use it a lot for demos when I'm sending them to clients. I'll be on my screen, and I'll show my screen of my dashboard, and my phone's up there, and it's got my form, and I'll record my screen, and it's got a little circle with my head in it, and so they can see me talking, and I'll just walk through a process on my phone, record it, and then the neatest thing about Loom is that I can speed it up so that it plays back at 1.2 or 1.3, which seems to be a very easy way to make a 3-minute video just a little bit shorter. But then, someone can watch it in their own time. So it might be great for training videos that you're doing on a computer with, a new technology tool, or, for those of us who are working in the office all the time, if you need to show someone something in a file, or here's what I'm seeing on my end, what are you seeing? It's great. Loom and Calendly are both like $10 a month, I think. Slack is a free platform. Google Sheets is free, but I think Shopify starts at $40 or $50 a month for a really nice online platform. So the other platforms really depend, like Zapier and Jotform depend on how many submissions you're sending through, but they're all really affordable. I think one of the things that Ryan and I have tried really hard as we're building this business is that we remember when technology consultants would come visit our company And we'd be like, oh, so expensive. And I don't know that I would still have that exact same attitude now, but, we're really looking for cost-effective solutions that, attack problems with common sense research. There's no reason to spend $10,000 on something to fix a $100 problem. You want to spend $1 or $10 to fix a $100 problem. And so we're really cognizant of the platforms that we use and having them be tailored to support. So if you're thinking about technology and you're thinking, where do I start? Ryan wrote out this process for me yesterday. It's important to get your data, to store your data, to integrate your platforms, and then manipulate your data. And that's a great process, but let's real talk this. First thing you need to do is you need to turn your paper forms into digital forms. And that can be as easy as just that one step, and then having the forms be emailed to the manager instead of turning them into the basket. The basket was definitely the least favorite thing on my desk. But once you've turned any of your paper forms into digital forms, you essentially have captured your data. Now, you may not be doing anything with it, but that process in itself will be a huge step in the right direction. And frankly, is very easy. The way that we work with clients is we say, send me a copy of your blank form and a copy of your form filled out. And then we literally click and drag to make that happen. So I'm actually going to show you guys a quick example of how I build. We're going to build a form right now. I'm going to pull this up. And let's see, where's my little example form that I had? I have a time off request. And so I'm going to log into drop forms. Back up here. So I've got my drop form login and my time off request form. Okay. So this is a very, very simple form. Can everyone see this? Okay, perfect. So as a very, very simple form, it's not complicated at all. I picked it because I thought it would be very simple. I don't really know how to zoom here. Can I make that a little bigger? Ooh, too big. Wow. Look at me and my technology skills. Not great. Well, here we go. Oh, here it is down at the bottom. Okay, so time off request form. So this is a fairly standard form. I think most of us probably have them in our companies. Forms can be a lot more complicated than this, but I wanted to show you how simple and easy it is to set this up today. So I logged into JotForm. I created this is a free account. I click on create form, and I could choose from a template or I can start from scratch. So I'm going to start from scratch. Classic form, show all questions on one page or show single questions per page. Nah, I don't like clicking buttons, so I'm going to show it all on one page. And so here, I can add my logo at the top. I can name this. I'm going to click here and I'm going to say time off. And then drag your first question here from the left. Add form element. So I'm going to add my name, full name. Click, drag. Great. Position. That is, I'm going to have that be a single choice. And I'm going to put options in here. And this will help me, you might have different departments that you want people to, approve different pieces with. So we'll have driver, mechanic, we'll have office, and we'll have sales. And if I didn't want to have sales, I could just cross that out and we could have three different options. So I need a question, what position? So a good way to say that. I guess I can just say position. And then dates requested. So I'm going to have, I think it's time. So I'm going to put in a time, and then I'm going to pull this over. And over here we have properties. So, nope, it doesn't look like that's the right one. So let's put that in the garbage. And, oh, that's right, it's a calendar widget. Perfect. So I'm going to pull up. So this is a widget. So this is part of the hurdle around figuring things out. Ryan builds most of our forms, and I'm so happy that he's slacking me right now to tell me where to go, which is part of the value of Slack. So I'm going to put this in date picker. And so I'm going to say first day date top. And then I'm going to put in another one that says last day off. Now, this is a piece that, you know, when you think about it, usually on this time off request form, you would just write in, you know, you'd write in, I want, you know, Wednesday the 24th through Friday the 26th, and that would be in there. On a digital form, you do have to do that a little bit differently. And that's, you know, part of the interest of designing your forms to be digital and how that works. So now vacation, sick time, or unpaid. So I'm going to put in another single choice. What type of request is this? Probably name that better. But again, I'm just clicking and I'm going to say vacation and sick time. And maybe unpaid is an option. So we'll click the little X here, and great. Well, you know, a lot of places have sick time paid in hours versus vacation paid in days. So let's add another question here that says, how many hours of sick time do you want to use? That's a number field that we put in. Now, that wasn't asked on this form, but you know, maybe that's something that our manager has followed up on. Sometimes your forms that you've created, you've been using them for years, and you may need to rethink them. And so this is a question that we can put in here. I've got a signature down at the bottom. It looks like we've got it here. And then I want to capture the date. So again, I've got my date and date of submission, request date maybe. And I'm going to say that I'm going to show today's date, yes, and that will be perfect. I'm going to click on properties here, and I'm going to say on advanced, I'm going to say that that field is hidden, and so they won't see it, which means we get to capture the date that they're submitting it, and that is not, you can't change that. And so here we've recreated. We're going to publish this, and I'm going to open this in a new tab, and I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can see it. So time off request form. So now I'm looking at a real form. If I give access to my employees, they can see that. And so if I fill out my name, and I'm going to say I'm a mechanic, which is everyone knows that is a terrible idea. Oh, I screwed this one up. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's go back, and I'm going to go to build, and I'm going to delete first day and last day. It looks like I have a different widget. Oh, date picker, of course. I needed to pick the correct date picker. So first day off. And we are not going to. We have some options here to pick some different pieces. Ooh, got too clicky on that. Okay, so now I'm going to republish this, and let's see if it looks great now. The nice thing is that it's pretty easy to make changes, right? Once you've figured out what's happening. So I'm going to be a driver. Also, terrible idea. I'm going to request off next Tuesday through next Friday. That makes sense. What type of request is this? Vacation. How many hours of sick time do I want to use? Well, I'm not asking for sick time. I'm asking for vacation. Huh. Well, we can, in our settings, we can select our conditions. And so there's all these different conditions that we have. And here we're going to show and hide field. So if what type of request is this is not equal to sick time, then we are going to hide the sick time question. So let me think about that. If it's not equal to, so if it is equal to sick time, then we're going to show this question. That'll be perfect. So this is some of the ways that forms can be smart. So did I publish that? I did. So here, my name is Trisha. I work in the office, which is the only good decision that was made in filling out this form today. And I'm requesting off from March through March 5th. This is a vacation request. Now, if I click sick time, it'll ask me how many hours of sick time I want to use. I say it's unpaid, and it goes away. So this is a way that forms can be really smart. And then I can use my finger, and I can sign this, and I can submit it. And that's amazing. Now, what can happen is as your employees are sitting at home on their couch thinking, gosh, I have not put in that request for time off, they can pull out their phone and they can fill it out there. They don't have to remember to stop by the office. They don't have to, and this is part of the way that we save, we talk about these 15-minute savings. If one of your employees clocks in and then has to walk to your office to find the time offer sheet, maybe you're on the phone and you have to ask them for it. There's lots of periods of time that make up those 15-minute increments that, again, add up to $20,000 a year. And that's bananas for something that they could literally be sitting on their couch, click their phone and fill that out. And it would automatically be emailed to their manager at the very least. Or you could actually have it go to a dashboard and through an approval process and many things. So if you're thinking, where do I start? Turning all of your paper into digital forms is a great first step. Once you've done that, you should be able to connect your data to send it somewhere in the cloud. There are lots of places to do this. We use Google Sheets because it is very easy to do, and JotForm will integrate directly with Google Sheets. We met a friend of mine a few years ago that had not even gone through steps 2, 3, and 4. All she had done was turned all of her digital paperwork, all of her paperwork into digital forms, and it was great for them. But they weren't gathering all of the efficiencies that they could have by sending your data somewhere in the cloud, connecting the dots with Zapier, and then Ryan calls it manipulating your data, but I like to think of it as making some super neato dashboards because it's really exciting when you get your managers to be managing KPIs and monitoring KPIs. There's that old saying, what you measure grows something. What metrics do you want your employees looking at? If you're managing a sales team, following up on leads. So what percentage of leads haven't been followed up on in 3 days? That might be an important metric. And I guarantee you, if there's a little box on your screen where you can click and see that metric, your sales team is going to get a lot better about following up on leads. So that's the process. Like I said, it's it seems overwhelming. That funny quote that I put up, it doesn't have to be complicated. It really isn't that complicated once you dig into it. And if you need some help, we're here for that. I just showed you how easy it was. And so as I wrap up, I know we're getting close to time here. I want to remind you guys that from a leadership perspective, Captain Obvious wants to remind you that you are in charge here. The people who are working at your business should be leaders, and they should be people who are being thoughtful about what's happening and make decisions that are good for the business and good for your team. And that oftentimes starts with you. I think it's really important that we do 2 things over the next 6 months. The first of which is ask for help. There are lots of things that I'm great at. There are lots of things that I am absolutely terrible about. And I am fortunate to have a great team around me that takes care of the things that I am not great at, like picking date widgets. But there are lots of ways that we can be helpful to support each other. I am a big fan of a rising tide carries all ships. And if you're not good at something, reach out and talk to people about it, because there's lots of people in this industry that have weird and useful experience. And if I've learned one thing over this year is that we band together to solve problems together. So asking for help is a big step in the direction of, helping your business. But also just make a decision to be the change. Some decisions are easy, some decisions are hard. Work with people who you love, work with vendors that you appreciate. And if you're annoyed by a process, get rid of it. Now's the time to be making changes, but it starts with being assertive about the changes that you're going to make. That's a picture of Socrates, in case no one remembered what the ancient Greeks looked like. One of my friends and I used to sit and have dinner and occasionally drink wine and just talk about things that we wanted to be different in our lives and in our work and things. And it's a really meaningful way to spend some time being thoughtful. We have one more webinar on Friday called Be the Change. And like I mentioned, it'll be about leadership and really about helping others. So we're going to talk about things that we're good at and things that we're bad at. It'll hopefully be an engaging time and hopefully a great way to end the week. We have done 7 of these, or we will when we're done. And we have a couple different consulting services that we're making available, including a website review, a LinkedIn profile review, which was a very popular webinar. If you missed it, I posted it on LinkedIn. But we're also doing financial work and marketing consulting work. So if any of that is interesting to you, reach out. I'm happy to have a number of conversations about it. We really are here to help. And we will get through the pandemic together. And of course, digital forms is generally what we do in this industry. So if you need help there, we're happy to help. So that's it. My cell phone and email are here on the screen. I know many of you have used them before, and I encourage you to continue to use them. I believe that it is time for change, and we have to start somewhere. And it's okay if when we start, we suck, because everyone who starts doing something new sucks in the beginning, and then you get better at it. So thank you so much for tuning in.